afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another bout of Propagandacast news from the host, Imperial Dane. This time not about the Timber Balance preview, though we've had a lot of videos about. No, we're back to the surveys. Yes, indeed. Relic just keeps churning out those surveys like a mad survey machine. Obviously, because, again, they're really keen on avoiding a repeat of Dawn of War 3, so they really want to make sure they're actually making what people want and not what they just think they want. So we got another survey here, in this case, campaign concepts, which obviously will mean there's some way that'll probably also affect the rest of the game. So, sort of tell us what you want, obviously. Campaign concept, where does your knowledge of World War II history come from? Video games, documentaries, school, not likely. At least in Denmark, most World War II knowledge in school is highly limited. Non-fictional books, fictional books, TV shows, movies, internet. For me, obviously, there's a lot of this, books, a bit the internet as well. Not so much the rest, maybe a bit video games in the early beginning. And obviously, I imagine for a lot of people, it's going to be the Propagandacast. Be sure to write it down there if you got the survey. If you haven't, I'll hunt you down with a crooked bat and point it at you threateningly. Of course, I won't resort to actual violence, but I'll imply I will be doing violence. So, again, right, Propagandacast. That is a fuel of a feel. Moving down here, important on the following. We've all seen this one quite a lot there, Pretty much all the same stuff there, but I guess there's a bit more there. Reason for the battles. That's actually not a bad one. Chronological order for the events. Not bad either. Maps featuring famous landmarks. But I tend to find those overrated. Doesn't have necessarily just has to be a good map to play on. That has to look alive. That's actually more important. That the map feels like, it's actually a part of a town or a village or anything. Like the map is alive. I think it's something Relic, in fact, has sort of struggled with in some of their games. It's the map tends to be sort of very clinically sterile, or they just don't look believable. Like some of the early games, like Dawn of War 1, they managed it quite well, and Companies 1, to an extent Companies 2, but you need to remember the maps need to look like they were lived in. They actually could organically look like a part of a battle. So I think that's actually more important than this. Outcome of the battles, I guess. And the difference between the strength of the forces involved. That's not a bad thing. Of course, it's going to be tricky to display that. Of course, there are certain ways to like smoke and mirrors can show that. Again, that's I think the important. Smoke and mirrors. Gain that impression of battle going on. Date of when the battles occurred. Uniforms of each force. Yes, extremely important. Like proper grenadier uniforms this time around. Relic. Proper grenadier uniforms. Damn it. So there you go. That one I just wanted to emphasize. Reenactments of specific battles, again, so you take part of them and you actually got to pull them yourself. I think that's more important. Equipment available for each force, yeah, reasonably important. Situation occurred during the battles. I mean, yeah, sure, if you can sort of bring out some specific, neat ones, but depending on the situation, it's going to be difficult. I mean, it's a bit more tricky, some of these questions. Technology level of the force involved. Yeah. I mean, how's that different from equipment available? I don't know. Maybe some of the background stuff, I don't know. Radio intelligence. I don't know. Location of the battles. And again, it's very much for immersion, of getting you sucked into the illusion. Again, it's smoke and mirrors. You sort of have to make people believe you're in it. And that, again, getting a lot of the details right, but also just making it feel like, it's an actual battle, somewhere in France, Italy, or Germany is really important. And that's, kind of also what needs to be important there to be remembered. It has to feel alive. It has to, feel believable. That's also why squad leaders are important. Again, squad leaders, Relic. Squad leaders. Again, I know they'll watch these videos, but again, after I post that previous video, they actually put out more surveys for people. So again, squad leaders, Relic. Make them proper, again, organic, believable, living, breathing, human elements, squad leaders. There you go. How would you like to inspire World War II for the coming games? As it happened in history, believable change in history, historical fantasy. Well, Iron Harvest isn't really World War II, it's more like World War 1B, I guess you can call it. But anyways, Wolfenstein. I mean, Wolfenstein could be an interesting sort of spin-off. That's more what it's going, spin-off, not, actual Companies like 3, but more like, Companies 3. Let's go all Wolfenstein and, camp it up. But, I think it's sort of more like this kind of prefer. Okay, I mean, this could also work. I mean, these sort of much closer to each other. So this one's sort of like just Wolfenstein. So, there you go. And here we sort of get to the real meat of this survey. Again, these are campaign concepts. Now they're sort of really hashing them out there. Battle for the Mediterranean. Engage in the battle for the Mediterranean, dominance of southern Europe as the Allies, or the Axis from early 1943 to late 1944. Again, the Axis, right? I mean, this is actually pretty big. This is pretty big. Axis. That was a terrible X. But there you go, Axis. Woo! We finally maybe get some German campaigns. Again, they sort of seem to realise, hey, people kind of want to play as the Germans. As the US Army finished off the Germans in Tunisia and pursue them through Sicily, the hills of Italy, and into southern France. They didn't actually retreat into France. They actually managed to stop them entirely in Italy. I mean, there's a reason, they sort of were held on. In fact, only 1945, maybe they sort of pushed through. So, I mean, they went pursued into southern France, really. Capture, destroyed ports and airfields, revisiting key battles like Anzio, Monte Cassino, Toulon, and Marseille, while the German army fights to defend every inch of terrain. As the Germans halt the retreat through Italy and repel the Allies in a new what-if scenario. I mean, what-if scenarios? With the Germans, maybe. Place the Germans, or the Americans with the Germans in 2 campaigns taking place in a dynamic mission map. German Army, US Force, and British Force are playing multiplayer. While Italian Army Force can be played by doctrines used by the Germany and the US. So in that regard, the Italians will become more, assistance for the other army, which kind of works. Fields of battle includes Tunisia, Italy, and southern France. Again, southern France, I was not really part of Italy. It was sort of more like a sort of follow-up, to Normandy, actually. So having it sort of be here just feels weird, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, I get Operation Dragoon, but I'd rather probably just stuff away Operation Dragoon and not, pop that one again. Like, no to France. Alright. I'm going to get what they're trying to do there, but I just don't think it's going to fit in. Then moves on. This one is actually interesting. The fall of Germany, early 1945. In early 1945, guard the Allies in landing the final blow to Germany, repel the Allies as the Axis. Again, sort of more fictional, or sort of speculative scenarios. As the US Army make a push from Belgium across Germany at key locations, including Nijmegen and the Ruhr River, crossing flooded plains and angry rivers, battle for bridges, Remagen, encircle the Ruhr Pocket, and finally secure the Rhine to smash Germany's last defence against the Allies. Starting late in the war, the Germans defend and then take back the fatherland, repelling the invaders in a compelling what-if scenario. Hello. Place the Americans with the Germans in 2 campaigns taking place on the dynamic mission map. German Army, British Force, and US Force to play multiplayer. Fields of battle including Belgium and central to eastern Germany. So there you go. And I mean, this one is kind of interesting. I mean, most people tend not to, well, most games tend not to look into the final sort of year, 1945, in Germany. It tends to get overlooked. So, I mean, this could actually be sort of a fresh sort of perspective on it, where the Germans sort of, the elite units beginning to run dry. They're relying more on just raw conscripts. With poor training, the units are getting more messily organised. I mean, this could be, pretty interesting. Plus, it would open up easily to just adding in the Russians with themselves also beginning to get tattered. I mean, most armies at this point, honestly, were starting to get tattered. So, this sort of exhaustion and fatigue could be something that could actually begin showing for all the different armies in different ways. Of course, the Soviet armies would be sort of more veteran, but still also having a lot of raw conscripts. And they could also then, in the expansion, add Hungary, because, that was around the time, Budapest fell. So they could sort of maybe do like a Budapest campaign, Hungarian campaign. It was sort of a bit early, late 1940, obviously, but also passed into 1945. So that could be an idea there. I mean, that regard, full of Germany, while not really what most people think about, could actually be an interesting sort of way to set Company Heroes 3 as an option. Then we move down here to blistering Africa, hit Italy, fight across the deserts of North Africa and over the mountains of Italy as the Allies and Germans battle for dominance in the Mediterranean from 1940 to 1943. In the Allied campaign, starts the British Army battling against the Germans across North Africa and the key locations like Tobruk, El Alamein, Kasserine Pass, and more. Then placed the US Army to take Italy away from the Germans to secure ports for the retaking of Europe. Placed the Germans in the deadliest battles of North Africa campaign and defeat the British and US force to see how you can change history. Again, a lot of the things for the Germans is basically just speculative, again, just sort of, what if, which I suppose is fine. Place the British and Americans or the Germans in 2 campaigns taking place on dynamic mission map. German Army, US Force, and British Forces play with multiplayer. Royal Italian Army again seems to play for the Germans in the US. Well, again, against Italy, sure. North Africa, not so much. They're strictly German. Fields of battle including North Africa and Italy. I mean, this is pretty much almost the same here, except slightly more limited scope. Whereas this one sort of passes into 44, and again, for some reason, includes Operation Dragoon. I mean, between these two, I think I prefer this one personally more than this one. But, again, personal taste. And then finally, the Battle of France and Britain. Spring 1940. Germany's invasion of France has begun, but in this unique what-if scenario, Germany will invade the British Isles as well, place the Germans or the British and change the course of history. As the Germans blitzkrieg across France, taking Paris and more before enacting the historic Operation Sea Lion, plan to cross the English Channel and take London to defeat the British. We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall never surrender. As the British start later in the war, where much of Britain has fallen, repel the German invaders from the British Isles and pursue them into France. So, again, more speculative campaigns here. Much more, in fact. Place the German British, US forces in the campaign can play out with doctrines used for the British. Well, the Americans didn't really get into that at that point, so it gets a bit more, really speculative. In particular, the US forces in 1940 weren't particularly good. I mean, honestly, I'm not entirely sure why they wouldn't have the French army instead, to be honest. I mean, this one definitely feels like the weakest, because at this point it just seems like they're trying to force in the Americans rather than just going for the obvious case, which would be the French. And it also feels a bit disrespectful to the French. And I mean, again, the most popular perception won't be, the French fought well, but, they fought more than the Americans did in 1940 in Europe. Come on, people. So, yeah. So I definitely feel like this one just strikes me as the weakest, where they're sort of just really grasping at straws, like they're trying to offer, a variety of scenarios, and for some reason they just can't figure out the stuffing in the French army. So this definitely feels like the most undercooked concept of a person to rate. Again, I'm thinking this one is number one. This is actually pretty close to them. I mean, this actually could be pretty interesting. This one against the long, just avoid Wunderwaffen syndrome. This one I'd probably rate as a 3, and then this one is just, actually a 5, leaving room for a possible 4, because this one again just feels so weak and undercooked. Like they're just tossing out stuff here to see if it sticks, but in reality it's not. So there you go. Again, already explained. Again, this actually explains this as well. And again, overall reasonably well. I'm buying most of them. Again, if you like Britain and France, I mean, you'd probably still buy it, but again, and I definitely think it'd be an outcry again, because they didn't add in the bloody French, but it's stuffing in the Yanks. Come on, people. Relic. So yeah, I'm over that sort of there. So this is pretty much by every one of them. We're just looking to see stuff there. We're not going to go through that one. And again, standard stuff there. So there we go. Sort of a bunch of questions. Again, they're sort of really trying to hone in. Again, most of them are focusing on the Mediterranean. Again, on Africa and Italy, though. Again, they are coming up with some interesting ones here again. And they're also very much looking for more dynamic campaigns. They're sort of moving away from the more, linear campaigns of Companies 1, which I do personally think was pretty good. Though, of course, the Ardennes Assault was also interesting. So, I mean, they have potential. But again, again, overall, this one's most interesting, this one's secondary interesting, this one's reasonably interesting, and this one's just right out. So yeah, hopefully this has been enlightening for you. I hope you've enjoyed this little walkthrough here. Again, sort of getting ideas what Relic is sort of trying to clue in on, and sort of what they're looking for, and again, what we might get in the actual company. So yeah, I mean, again, very much looking at Italy and Africa, but there's also some potential there for some 1945 shenanigans with the German army and the Allies, which again could be pretty interesting actually. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Have you subscribe, like, share, comment on it. Share it with your friends. Let as many people see this as possible. And of course, a big thanks to Marcus who sent this in for me, allowing me to actually do this because they didn't send it to me. Most appreciated, Marcus. And of course, if you like what I do consider donating or pledging on Patreon. Links in the video description. Of course, a big thanks to all those who pledge on Patreon. So thank you all, and see you all another time for another video.